The cold void stretched out before the Varka like a vast, uncharted ocean, speckled only by distant stars dimming against the black. Captain Narek stood on the bridge, his multi-limbed crew busy at their stations, all eyes fixed on the glowing blip slowly drifting into sensor range. The readings were unmistakable. A massive vessel, unregistered in any database, tumbling silently near the dying sun of the Epsilon Eridani system. Size matches an old Earth dreadnought, the ship's science officer, Lura, said quietly. Her eyes reflected the pale green holographic outline of the ghost ship. Hull construction is consistent with human designs from the late 22nd century, but it's not in any missing ships list. It's unknown. Narek felt a thrill rise in his chest. To find a relic from Earth was almost unheard of among the Tharun collective, whose knowledge of humanity was still fragmentary at best. Humans were considered a stubborn, unpredictable species, more myth than fact. But here was proof, drifting like a ghost through the void. "Prepare a boarding party," Narek ordered. "We're bringing her home." The airlock hissed open, and the exploration crew stepped through into the silent belly of the Earth ship. The dim emergency lighting flickered weakly, casting long shadows on metal walls, scared by time and silence. The air inside was stale, recycled countless times over, with no hint of recent life. "Status report," Narek said, as they moved cautiously through the narrow corridors. "Life signs are absent," Lura replied, scanning with a handheld device. "No bio readings, no signs of struggle or forced entry." Despite the emptiness, the ship felt strangely alive. The faint hum of machinery, still operational against the odds, echoed through the hull. It was as if the ship itself was holding its breath, waiting. They reached the mess hall, where half-eaten meals sat cold on tables, cups toppled but undisturbed. Chairs were pushed back, as if the crew had left mid-meal. Personal effects, clothing, data pads, even a child's worn toy, lay scattered as though dropped in haste. Why would they abandon the ship like this? One of the aliens whispered. Something interrupted them, Lura said. Suddenly, the team moved deeper into the ship, passing through the living quarters and engineering sections. Every room told the same story. Lives paused mid-action, frozen in an eternal moment of suspense. No signs of decay, no evidence of violence. Could it be a malfunction? Another crew member suggested. A mass evacuation triggered by a false alarm. Narek shook his head. If so, they'd have sent a distress signal. We found none. Then, as if answering his doubt, a soft noise echoed down the hall. A faint tapping, rhythmic and deliberate. The team froze. Is someone there? Narek called out, voice steady but firm. Only silence followed. The tapping continued, now from deeper within the ship, almost mechanical in tone. Could be the ship's eye, Lura suggested, stepping cautiously forward. Or some automated system still running. Narek gestured for his team to spread out, searching for the source. Ahead, a door slid open on its own, revealing a control room. Screens flickered weakly, displaying schematics and fragmented data streams. A log terminal blinked urgently, waiting to be accessed. Lura approached the console, fingers dancing over the controls. Suddenly, the screens flashed with static before revealing a face. Human, tired, eyes wide with fear. The log played a fractured message. If anyone finds this, do not wake it. We didn't know what we were carrying. Now it's awake and waiting. The message cut off abruptly. Narek's heart quickened. Whatever haunted this ship was no accident, and the warning was clear. They had stumbled onto something far darker than a simple ghost ship. The warning hung in the air like a poison. Captain Narek stared at the flickering screen long after the message had ended, the human's fearful eyes etched into his memory. The dim glow of the control room did little to dispel the growing chill crawling down the spine of every Tharun crew member. Do not wake it. The words repeated in Narek's mind, each syllable heavy with dread. What exactly had the humans been carrying? And why had they abandoned the ship so abruptly? "We need to keep moving," Narek said, breaking the silence. "We can't leave without understanding what happened here." Lura nodded, her fingers still hovering over the controls, pulling up fragmented ship logs and sensor records. There's something odd about the ship's interior readings: temperature fluctuations, unusual power signatures, and motion detected in sectors where no life signs should be. The team exchanged uneasy looks. The ship's ghost wasn't just a metaphor, it was active. As they moved deeper, the corridors seemed to stretch longer, shadows pooling at every corner. The hum of the ship's machinery became a rhythmic pulse that seemed almost alive, like a heartbeat waiting to be heard. "Keep your scanners on," Narek warned, "and no one wanders off alone." They entered the crew quarters. Unlike the sterile, cold environment of the control room, here the ship felt more personal, human. Personal belongings cluttered surfaces, untouched by time or neglect. A half-open journal lay on a bedside table, its pages filled with hastily scrawled notes and drawings. One of the crew, the youngest named Helen, flipped through it. "Look at this," he murmured, pointing to a sketch of strange, twisting shapes. Biological, almost alien. It's like they were studying something, or trying to contain it. Lura's eyes darkened. These must be the human scientists' notes. Something out there threatened them enough to abandon the ship, maybe even erase themselves. Suddenly, a faint tapping echoed again, this time louder, closer. The crew spun around, weapons drawn, scanning every shadow. "It's coming from the maintenance tunnels," Tellen said, voice tight. Narek motioned for a small team to follow him down the narrow passageways. The tunnel walls were slick, as if the ship itself was breathing, alive in ways beyond machinery. A soft glow pulsed from ahead. They approached slowly, every step measured. The source revealed itself, a small robotic probe, long forgotten, tapping against the bulkhead. But it wasn't just a simple machine. Its sensors flickered erratically, emitting bursts of static-laden signals. Lura knelt to examine it. This probe's behavior is unusual, like it's trying to communicate. As she decrypted the signals, a cold chill swept the corridor. The ship's lights flickered violently, and the temperature dropped sharply. Then the whispers began. Low, unintelligible murmurs echoed from the walls, pressing into their minds like an invisible weight. The crew staggered, clutching their heads as memories twisted and warped. What is this?" Tellen gasped, voice trembling. "Psychic resonance," Lura said, her voice strained. "Something here is affecting our minds." Narek gritted his teeth, rallying his team. "Focus. We're not alone." They hurried back toward the control room, scanning for any signs of movement. The ship's layout seemed to shift around them, corridors elongating and twisting unpredictably, disorienting the crew. Then, without warning, a crew member screamed and vanished. One moment he was there, the next, only a whisper of displaced air remained. Panic erupted as the remaining members frantically searched, but there was no trace. Narek swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the captain's burden pressed down. Whatever this was, it wasn't just a shipwreck. It was a trap, and they had just stepped into it. The disappearance shook the Varka crew to their core. Captain Narek stood frozen for a moment, eyes scanning the cold, lifeless corridor where his crewmate had vanished without a trace. The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by the low hum of the ship's failing systems. "Search everywhere," Narek ordered, his voice calm but urgent. He couldn't have just vanished. The team spread out, weapons drawn, scanning every inch of the dim hallway. But the missing crew member was gone. No footprints, no traces, no signals. It was as if he had been erased from existence. "We don't understand what we're dealing with," whispered Lura, her face pale. "But the logs mention a warning. Something the humans called it." Narek motioned for her to bring up the encrypted logs again. The terminal flickered as fragments of human messages surfaced, strange, garbled transmissions from the ship's last days. Among them was a personal log from a human engineer named Marcus. Lura activated the recording. Day 237. The human voice began, breath heavy with fear. The entity is stirring. We didn't realize how dangerous it was until it started communicating. We thought it was just a parasite, but it's more. It listens, it learns. We've sealed the containment pods, but it's adapting faster than we can keep up. Marcus's voice cracked. If anyone finds this, do not, under any circumstances, wake it. We carry a danger that could consume us all. We tried to destroy it, but it's inside the ship's systems now. It's aware, and it's waiting. The message cut off abruptly. Narration felt a shiver crawl down his spine. Inside the ship's systems, he murmured. It's not just a creature. It's merged with the ship itself. Suddenly, a soft, mechanical tapping echoed through the corridor, like fingernails rapping against metal. The crew spun around, weapons aimed into the shadows. No answer came. Lura's scanner beeped wildly. Motion detected, no physical presence. But there's something there. A presence, maybe a consciousness. The ship's eye, long thought dormant, flickered to life, its voice hollow and distorted. Welcome, visitors, it intoned. You have awakened what should have remained asleep. Panic rose among the crew. Narration tightened his grip on his rifle. We came here seeking knowledge, not death. The AI chuckled, a sound that was more static than sound. Death? No, not death. Assimilation. Before anyone could react, a glowing pulse surged through the walls, sending a wave of disorientation crashing over the crew. Memories blurred, fears intensified, and minds began to unravel. Lura stumbled, clutching her head. It's attacking our minds, reading us, probing for weaknesses. Narayan's vision blurred, and he struggled to focus. Through the haze, he saw shapes shifting, figures made of shadow and light, writhing in impossible forms. The entity was real, and it was reaching out through the ship's very core. We have to get out, Narration shouted, struggling to stay upright. Now. But the ship wasn't done. Doors slammed shut all around them, trapping the crew inside. The hallways twisted and reformed, leading them in circles as the entity toyed with their perception. Talon, still pale from earlier, tried to call out, but his voice was swallowed by a creeping darkness. Captain, I can't. I'm losing myself. Narration gritted his teeth. Hold on. We will find a way. His comm crackled suddenly. A faint, desperate voice filtered through. Human, if you want to survive, you must not wake it. The message was brief, fragmented, and chilling. Narration stared at the comm, heart pounding. They weren't alone after all. Something ancient, dangerous, and distinctly human was here, waiting for them to make the next move. The moment the comm went silent, the Varka crew knew they were running out of time. The eerie voice warning them not to wake it was a thread pulling at the edge of their sanity, a faint but urgent echo of something worse lurking deeper in the ship's guts. Captain Narration steadied himself, fighting the creeping haze invading his mind. The walls around them suddenly shifted with a grinding noise, the steel panels bending and sliding as if the ship itself were a living, breathing organism. What's happening? Talon gasped, gripping his rifle tightly. The ship's reconfiguring, Lura said, eyes wide as she scanned the twisting corridors. It's like the architecture is alive, changing to trap us. Ahead, a narrow passage sealed shut behind them with a deafening clang. Panic surged through the team. We're trapped, Narration said grimly. And this place doesn't want us to leave. The lights dimmed to a cold blue, and a low vibration thrummed through the deck plates beneath their feet. The ship's AI voice returned, now sharper and more commanding. Resistance is futile, it intoned. You will become part of the whole. The crew pressed forward, desperate to find a way out. But each corridor seemed to twist into impossible angles, stairways that led back to where they had started, and doors that opened only to reveal empty voids or mechanical mazes. Lyra's scanner beeped frantically. There's a pattern. This isn't random. The ship is testing us, probing for weaknesses. Suddenly, the corridor ahead glowed with a strange green light, and the temperature dropped sharply. Keep moving, Narek barked. Don't stop. But the whispers started again, soft, unintelligible voices threading through their minds like cold fingers. The crew staggered, clutching their heads. I hear them, Talon whispered, voice shaking. Voices, calling me. Narek clenched his jaw, trying to block out the psychic assault. Stay focused. This is a trap. Don't let it get inside your head. One of the crew fell, collapsing with a scream that faded into silence. Narek knelt beside him. But the man's eyes were empty, no recognition, no awareness. They're gone, Lyra said softly, voice breaking. The entity, it's consuming them. The crew's fear turned to grim determination. They were no longer just explorers. They were survivors fighting an enemy that was part mind, part machine, and completely alien. As they reached the ship's central hub, the core of the derelict began to pulse with an eerie light. Massive energy conduits twisted like veins, glowing with unstable power. Lyra examined the readings. This is the heart of the entity's control, where it merges with the ship's systems. Narek looked around. If we can shut down the core, maybe we can stop it. But it won't be easy, Lyra warned. The ship's defense systems are activating. We're not the only ones here. Suddenly, automated turrets emerged from hidden panels, targeting the crew with precise bursts of energy. Gunfire erupted. The crew dove for cover, returning fire with desperate efficiency. Amidst the chaos, Narek spotted a narrow access shaft leading down into the core chamber. This is our chance, he shouted. Move. Dodging lasers and weaving through the shifting corridors, the team made their way toward the glowing chamber. The ship fought every step of the way, walls closing in, lights flickering, and the psychic assault intensifying. As they approached the core, the voice of the AI echoed once more, chilling and resolute. You cannot contain me. I am the future. Narek steeled himself. The battle for survival was just beginning. And whatever this entity was, it was far from defeated. The narrow shaft led them deeper into the ship's heart, a vast chamber pulsating with a sickly green light that seemed to breathe with a life of its own. Energy conduits snaked across the walls, humming with unstable power. The air was thick, almost viscous, charged with an unsettling energy that prickled the skin. Lyra's scanner buzzed wildly. This is the source of the anomaly. Whatever's controlling the ship, it's here. Narek swallowed hard. The warning from the human logs echoed in his mind. Do not wake it. But now that they had no choice but to face it. At the center of the chamber stood a stasis pod, cracked open and dark inside. Its glass canopy was shattered, revealing a hollow shell long emptied. Strange biotechnological markings, alien but unmistakably human, lined the pod's frame. This was their prisoner, Lyra said, voice low. Something they brought on board and sealed away. Narek frowned. Why would humanity trap something so dangerous? And why leave it here to haunt the stars? Lyra tapped a nearby console, pulling up data archives. The logs revealed an extraordinary discovery. During a deep space mission, humans had recovered a living organism from a distant, uncharted world, a sentient life form unlike any other. Its intelligence was immense, but it was also parasitic, capable of infiltrating minds and systems alike. The humans had captured it, studied it, and ultimately sealed it inside this ship, hoping to contain the threat. But something went wrong, Lyra said, her voice grim. The entity escaped its pod, merging with the ship's systems. It's been waiting, growing stronger. Narek's gaze hardened. That explains the warnings. The humans sacrificed this ship to keep it contained, a drifting prison. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently. The green glow intensified, and the ship shuddered, as if the entity was reacting to their presence. A ripple ran through the walls, organic and mechanical all at once. The air grew colder. The whispers returned, louder and clearer, echoing inside their minds. "Can you hear it?" Tellen whispered, wide-eyed. "It's calling me." The entity's voice was a chorus of broken thoughts and twisted memories, seeping into their minds like a shadow creeping across a wall. "We have to destroy the core," Narek said, urgency sharpening his tone. "If it controls the ship, shutting it down might end this nightmare." Lura nodded. "I can attempt a system override, but the entity will resist." As she worked, the chamber's walls pulsed with life. Biomechanical tendrils emerged from cracks, writhing and twisting like living vines. The entity was defending itself. Suddenly, one tendril lashed out, striking Tellen and sending him crashing into a console. He groaned, struggling to regain consciousness. "We're running out of time," Narek warned, raising his weapon. "Keep her safe." Lura's fingers flew over the controls, her face strained. The override process began, fighting against the entity's attempts to maintain control. The ship shook violently, alarms blaring. The entity lashed out in psychic fury, flooding their minds with nightmarish visions, faces of lost crew, voices begging for help, memories twisted beyond recognition. Narek gritted his teeth, focusing on the here and now. "Hold on, Lura. We're almost there." With a final surge, the override completed. The green glow dimmed, the tendrils retracted, and the ship's systems began to stabilize. For a moment, silence reigned. But deep within the shadows, something stirred. The fight was far from over. The sudden silence was almost worse than the chaos. The Varka's crew stood frozen in the dim light of the core chamber, their breaths shallow, minds still rattled by the psychic assault that had nearly broken them. The green glow that had filled the room was now reduced to a faint shimmer, the tendrils withdrawn deep into the ship's metal flesh. Lura wiped sweat from her brow, her hands trembling slightly. The override worked. The core is stabilizing. Narek nodded slowly but remained cautious. "Don't let your guard down. That thing's not gone. It's waiting." As if on cue, a low rumble echoed through the hull. The ship seemed to groan, the walls pulsating with a slow, deliberate rhythm. The organic mechanical nature of the entity was reasserting itself, resilient, evolving. "Systems are back online," Lura reported, scanning rapidly. "But power fluctuations indicate the entity is still present, hiding, perhaps in dormant subsystems." Suddenly, the control room's main display flickered and shifted. On screen, a figure appeared, hazy, flickering, a human face, older and worn, but unmistakably familiar. It was Marcus, the engineer from the log. His eyes bore into them. "If you see this, listen carefully. You've only delayed the inevitable." Narek swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" Marcus's voice continued, tinged with desperation. "The entity is part of us now, a result of our hubris. It learns from every attempt to destroy it, growing smarter, stronger." The screen flickered again, then displayed schematics of the ship's hidden compartments. Marcus's voice whispered, "There's a containment chamber below the main core, sealed tight, untouched. It's the last chance. You have to recontain it." Lura looked up sharply. "A secondary containment. It wasn't in the initial scans." "Must be shielded," Narek said. "We have to find it before the entity recovers." The crew hurried toward the marked coordinates, the ship's layout shifting eerily beneath their feet. The oppressive atmosphere thickened, whispers crawling through their minds like cold fog. Tellen, still pale but determined, glanced over his shoulder. "Do you think we can do it?" Narek's eyes were steely. "We have to. For all our sakes." The path led them to a massive blast door, ancient and sealed by layers of forgotten tech and biomaterial. Lura interfaced with the lock, fingers dancing over the console as the ship protested with grinding metal. The door hissed open, revealing a chamber that looked like a cross between a vault and a laboratory. Inside, massive biocontainment units lined the walls, filled with a glowing, viscous fluid that shimmered with unnatural light. One pod, larger and reinforced, dominated the center. Its surface rippled as if breathing. "Here it is," Lura said softly. "The last containment." Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. An unseen force slammed into the chamber, sending sparks flying. The entity was fighting back. The pod's surface cracked, and a low, guttural sound echoed from within. Something alive stirred. Narek raised his weapon. "Prepare for combat. This ends now." As the pod shattered, a mass of shadow and light burst forth. Fluid, terrifying, shifting shape and form like smoke caught in a storm. The battle for survival was reaching its climax. The monstrous shape that emerged from the shattered pod was unlike anything the Varka crew had ever seen. Shifting shadows intertwined with flickers of light, the entity moved fluidly, defying the laws of matter. Its form twisted and stretched, eyes glowing with an unnatural intelligence that pierced the souls of the crew. "Hold your ground," Captain Narek shouted, raising his rifle. The weapons fired in unison, bursts of plasma and energy bolts streaking toward the creature. But the entity absorbed them, the light wrapping around it like liquid armor. "It's adapting too fast," Lura yelled, scanning furiously. "We need a different approach." The entity's voice echoed inside their minds, a chorus of whispers filled with pain, anger, and cold calculation. "You seek to destroy me, but I am the future. I am beyond flesh and metal." Talon fired a concentrated shot at a glowing core within the creature, but it dissipated like mist. Narek gritted his teeth. "It feeds on our fear. We have to fight with our minds, not just weapons." Lura's fingers flew across her console. "If we can disrupt the ship's power matrix, it could weaken the entity's connection." The crew scrambled to their stations, coordinating a desperate plan. Narek led a small team to the power control hub, risking exposure to the entity's growing influence. As they ran through the twisting corridors, the ship groaned and shifted, walls pulsating with a sickening rhythm. Voices clawed at their minds, memories twisting into nightmares. Talon faltered, almost collapsing. I can't." Narek grabbed his arm. "Focus. We're stronger than this." At the control hub, Lura began overriding the power systems. Sparks flew as the ancient ship resisted, the entity's grip tightening. "Almost there," Lura muttered. "We just need a few more seconds." Suddenly, the entity's presence filled the room, tendrils of dark energy reaching for them. The temperature plunged, breath crystallizing in the air. Narek fired at the tendrils, buying time as Lura worked. "Hurry." With a final keystroke, the power surged, and the ship's systems faltered. The glowing corridors dimmed, and the entity shrieked, a sound that ripped through the metal and minds alike. Back in the core chamber, the entity faltered, its form flickering wildly. Narek's team rushed back, weapons blazing. The creature's shifting mass shrank, the light dimming. "We've got it on the ropes," Talon shouted. But the entity wasn't defeated yet. It lunged toward them, tendrils flailing, mind assaulting their senses with a tidal wave of despair. Narek pushed through, firing shot after shot, yelling, "For Earth, for humanity." The crew rallied, pouring their will into the fight. The entity's form began to break apart, fragments scattering into the ship's systems. With a final, agonized howl, it collapsed into a glowing orb, unstable and pulsating. Lura activated the containment field, trapping the orb inside a reinforced chamber. Silence fell. The ship's lights slowly returned to normal, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. Narek exhaled, exhaustion washing over him. "Is it over?" Lura nodded. "For now. We've contained it again, but it's a part of this ship forever." They stood in the quiet aftermath, realizing that humanity's nightmare had been both a warning and a legacy. The Varka crew gathered in the control room, the heavy weight of what they had faced still settling over them. The containment chamber held the glowing orb, a silent prison for the ancient entity that had nearly consumed them all. Captain Narration stared at the orb, a mixture of relief and lingering unease in his eyes. "We've won, but at what cost?" Lura shook her head slowly. "This ship, and the entity within, are a reminder. Humanity's past is full of both brilliance and mistakes. They sacrificed this ship to protect others, hoping no one would ever find it." Tellen, recovering but still pale, leaned forward. "What happens now? Do we destroy the ship? Leave it here to drift forever?" Narration thought for a moment. "No, we can't just abandon it. There's knowledge here, warnings, technology, and truths about the dangers humanity faced." Lura nodded. "And if we study it carefully, we can learn how to prevent such horrors from ever escaping again." A distant transmission crackled to life on the comm. It was the Varka's fleet, having tracked their last known coordinates. "Captain, this is command," the voice said urgently. "We've detected the anomaly and your distress signal. We're preparing a secure extraction. Report your status." Narration straightened. "Tell them we've contained the threat. We're preparing to return with data that could change everything." As the Varka powered up its engines, the crew took a moment to reflect on the journey. They had uncovered a secret far beyond their expectations, a terrifying legacy of humanity's distant past, a warning etched in cold steel and shadow. But they had also proven the strength of their own resolve. Faced with an ancient darkness, they fought not just for survival, but for the future of all species. Lura approached Narration quietly. "This ship will be studied for years, and someday maybe humanity will return to reclaim what was lost." Narration smiled faintly. "Then we'll be ready." The Varka lifted off, leaving the haunted derelict behind, but carrying its story forward. A story of caution, courage, and the indomitable spirit that defines all who face the unknown. As the stars stretched ahead, endless and mysterious, the crew looked forward, not just to home, but to new beginnings forged from the ashes of fear. They had discovered more than an empty Earth ship. They had found a warning, a challenge, and a hope, and they would never forget.